inflation? Inflation is the general rise in the prices of services and goods in a particular country. Inflation will result in a fall in the value of money, reduces the purchasing power of each unit of currency, hence increases the cost of living. Inflation is measured by the inflation rate, which is the annual percentage change in consumer price. Usually, country will measure inflation using these three indices, which are Producer Price Index (PPI), Consumer Price Index (CPI), and Personal Consumption Expenditure Price Index (PCE). The headline inflation for 2015 is 2.1%. In 2016, both the headline and core inflation is 2.1%. In 2017, the headline inflation is 3.7%. The headline inflation measured by the growth of the Consumer Price Index declined to 1.0% in 2018. Average headline inflation was lower at 0.7% in 2019. Next, Indonesia has the highest rate of inflation compared to Malaysia and Brunei. 2015 was the highest registered annual average rate of inflation at 6.36%. In 2016, the rate decreases by 2.83% at 3.53%. However, the inflation rate increases in 2017 at 3.81%. Consequently, the rate decreases to 3.29% in 2018, and last year Indonesia annual average inflation rate amounted to 2.82%. Brunei inflation rate for 2019 was negative 0.39%. Brunei inflation rate for 2018 was 1.03%. Brunei inflation rate for 2017 was negative 1.26%. Brunei inflation rate for 2016 was negative 0.28%, a 0.21% increase from 2016.
So what are the main causes of inflation? Some of the major reasons behind inflation is because of high demand and low supply of goods. This creates a demand-supply gap which leads to high in prices. It may be because of people are getting richer and have more money. People become richer might be because of they borrow money from the bank. Inflation will discourage saving and promote consumption because it is better to buy today if tomorrow everything will be more expensive. Next is excess circulation of money. This will lead to inflation as it loses its purchasing power. When people having more money, they tend to spend more, which causes increased demand. For example, when more people want to buy tomatoes price will rise. Government also influences inflation through taxation and fiscal policy. For example, before this, Malaysians have the taxation of GST. High MSPs on agriculture products, taxes on petrol and diesel or clothes can lead to rise in inflation. Next is cost-push inflation. This is where the cost in the business rises. There can be a lot of reasons for these rises. Firstly, raw material, especially oil, might become more expensive for a very nice reason, that is because of other countries are developing and doing well.
There will be a lot of things that will be affected. For this video, I will focus on what is the impact of inflation on people's life. The rule of inflation is when inflation happens, the price of goods and services will rise. During inflation, people cannot maximize their utility. It will discourage them to save more money instead of spend, since their power buying decreases. When the price of goods and services increase, it automatically makes the cost of their living rise. Their usual expense for living is increased due to the rising price of goods and services, making them spend more money. Besides, many people might lose their job when inflation happens. It is because the employee is not able to pay their salary. People discourage buying unnecessary things since the price of goods increase. Their firms will be affected since they cannot produce more goods and also services to maximize their profit. During inflation, the cost of production also increase. However, the rate of employment will increase if any business grabs this opportunity to gain more profit than usual, since the price of goods and services increase. They need to hire more workers to increase the output. Moreover, interest rate is really relatable with inflation. For saving, if the interest rate is decreased, people will not save more money. There is no benefit for them to save more when the rate of interest for saving rises. Plus, people will be encouraged to save more when the interest rate is increasing. Same goes to borrowing. People will start borrowing when interest rate is decreased. It can give a lot of benefit to debtors, but at the same time, the creditor will be affected. The cost of borrowing decreases, so people will be encouraged to borrow more. However, people avoid borrowing when the interest rate is increased, since the cost of borrowing is rising.
Consumer Price Index or CPI is very important and widely used to measure the rate of inflation in a country. It is very important for the government, business and individuals to make economic decisions, as CPI shows the rate of inflation and the changes in price. The CPI can easily be computed by dividing the cost of the market basket in a given year with the cost of the market basket in the base year. The CPI are measured by using three measurements, which are year-on-year changes, month-on-month changes, and period-on-period changes. The result of the CPI will be used to calculate the rate of inflation, where the recent CPI minus previous CPI and divided it with the previous CPI. During August 2019 until August 2020, in Malaysia, the inflation rate has decreased over 1.4%, where the CPI has changed from 121.8 to 120.1. Whereas in Indonesia, the inflation rate has increased over 1.4% during October 2019 until October 2020, where the CPI has changes from 103.43 to 104.92.
Let's take a look at how these countries handle inflation. For Malaysia, what they do is to change the interest rate to be adjusted upwards. It is because when interest rate is low, people are easy to borrow money. So much money spent in the market will lead to the increase of price, which is inflation. So apply statutory reserve ratio, where banks have to keep a certain minimum proportion of their deposits in the form of specified liquid assets. When this happens, banks cannot invest more money, therefore they will increase the interest rate to generate revenue. It will lead to people reduce borrowing loan and there will be decrease of demand. Therefore, Malaysia can control the inflation. We move to Indonesia. What they do to control inflation is by postponing large capital development projects and reducing government expenditure. This action will slow down the economic growth and control the increase of price of goods and services, which is inflation. Main action used by Brunei to control inflation is by developing a currency board management. Under a currency board, the management of the exchange rate and money supply are given to Brunei's monetary authority that makes decisions about the valuation of Brunei's currency. This monetary authority has direct instructions to back all units of domestic currency in circulation with foreign currency. A currency board operates similarly to a strong version of the gold standard. They maintain a fixed exchange rate against the Singapore dollar. To understand more regarding this idea, let's take a look at one example. Let's say Brunei's currency falls and they have no incentive to control the exchange rate. The foreign goods will be continuously more expensive, and as a result, the residents of Brunei will reduce the purchases of imported goods and will increase the demand of domestic goods. There will be an increase in the domestic aggregate demand, and Brunei may get demand pull inflation. Thus, we can see that a currency board management has a very important role in controlling the inflation.